Welcome back to another episode of Uncommonwealth, the show where we dive into the mindsets, moves, and mechanics behind building generational wealth. Today on Uncommonwealth, I'm joined by Maureen Suttle, the Executive Vice President at the Box Office Company, a global leader in cinema and entertainment technology. With a career spent leading international teams and driving innovation and scale, Maureen brings unique insights into how businesses can rethink remote work, productivity, and culture in today's evolving workspace. We'll dive into how leaders can balance flexibility with accountability, protect people's energy while driving results, and what it really means to build a legacy, not just in business, but in how you lead and preserve what you've created. Maureen, you've built an impressive career leading, at the Box Office Company. How has your leadership style evolved as you've scaled teams and taking on greater responsibility?
It's a good question. It's been quite a journey. So I've been with the company for 8 years now, and as time went, I grew in responsibility and team size, etc. So now I'm in charge of one of the divisions of the company with about 35 people reporting to me that are distributed between France, Scotland, Mexico, Canada, and I'm hiring somebody in Brazil that starts in 2 weeks. So it's uh, quite diverse culturally in terms of languages spoken also. Everybody speaks English.
Yeah.
That's one of the requirements. Otherwise, this would not work. Um, but in lots of accents. We have also multiple even regions in France and people speaking different dialects. So it's quite fun. I'm myself from France originally, so you'll hear a hint of an accent here and there. But I've lived in the US for 15 years. So
Wonderful.
in terms of management, I think the key things with teams like that has been to put in place as much transparency as possible, maybe in terms of setting clear goals per quarter for our division, and sharing that across the entire team so that everybody's rowing in the same direction. Everybody knows what we're trying to achieve, communicating on results, and trying to get everybody excited as to how we're doing and what needs to improve and all of that, giving them access to numbers, financials also, so that they understand how we're faring as a company. It's got pros and cons. Like sometimes you don't want to say too much, but overall, it's been positive. I think people are understanding what we're trying to achieve. They're buying into a vision, and they're working with each other to achieve the same things, which it is hard to achieve if you don't have that level of transparency. If everybody's working in their own corner, talking to their two colleagues that are in the same country as they are. So that was important. We also put in place some years ago already. So we're in the tech world. So we put in place product demos every 2 weeks, where the product team presents what they've been working on, where teams in success, sales, support, whatever position can ask questions, get trained on some specific questions that they have. So trying to make sure that everybody's kept up to date on what's happening throughout various divisions. And same thing, like our support team does a monthly update on like, here are the main questions that we get, and gets everybody thinking about how to solve them so that they stop coming up. So it's probably a bit of over communication at times, and it's finding that right balance between people spending too much time in meetings, but at the same time getting the right level of information across the board.
Well, in a remote environment, there's a fine line between over communication and under communication. And I think over communication has to be the side you fall on, because in a remote, you can't just walk down the hall and bump into somebody's office, right? So you have to over communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's much of a choice really.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
with the technology stack that you guys probably use, I mean, there's whether it's Slack or a tool like Slack, office communication, they made it quite seamless and very, they've adjusted, right? So after the post-COVID world, they've adjusted quite nicely. But, the remote work is first leaders like yourself to think differently about productivity. What strategies helped you ensure teams remain both efficient and engaged at the same time?
Um, I don't know if maybe off the record for a sec. Um, put in place a coaching for the company. It's called
Oh, yeah.
it's EOS, which stands for
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Entrepreneurial
I'm very
Operating
familiar with
System.
EOS. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we put that, or maybe this is on record, whatever. We put that in place about a year ago for the company globally. So we have 4 divisions that are quite distinct with very clear cut team structures in each one of the division. So we have one quarterly presentation at our global management level, and then with company goals, revenue goals, very clear strategies for the whole company. And then for each division, we have the same with more. So taking the same goals that are reflected at the company, but then adding on a few divisional goals. So that's really helped us get everybody aligned and everybody enthusiastic about all again working in the same direction. I think it's really helped us get more organized and have a clear vision of where we're going in 1 year, 3 years, 10 years. The
Yeah. So you've
miles.
got the integrator, the visionary.
That's right.
You've read the book
Exactly.
Traction, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah.
widely shared with our team members. It's a year ago nobody knew what EOS stood for, and now we're all quite fluent in the weird trademarked terminology that they use, which are quite numerous.
I'm in a CEO group called Vistage, Vistage International. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but most of the companies that are in there are well north of $5 million of annual revenue, if not pushing 50 million, $100 million of annual revenue. And one of the common threads amongst the companies that have been on a severe upward trajectory is the implementation of EOS or systems very similar to that. So, good on you guys for doing that. Did you bring that to the company or did someone else bring that to the company?
Um, no, I can't take the credit for it. It was
Hmm.
somebody on my team
Nice.
who was familiar with it, who brought it to me, and I was like, you know what, we could really use that. It was also at a time when we were going through quite some changes. We had a new CEO coming on board who was quite open also to putting new things in place and getting a little bit more organized. The previous guy was wonderful, but very full of ideas every 5 seconds, and so very hard to have a direction that wasn't constantly shifting. So it came at the right time as stars aligned on that one. Yeah, we were all very happy to put that in place, and it's helped us a lot. Also, in terms of like company culture, values, all these things that are part of the program, and to make sure that we share that with the rest of the team and everybody understands what we're trying to build here and in what environment we want to operate.
For sure. You know, in doing the research on the box office company, it clearly operates globally, as you had mentioned in the intro, across tech and entertainment kind of intertwined. How has rethinking the remote work improved your ability to scale or adapt as a business?
Tons. I mean, we maybe I can say a quick word about what we do to help put
Yeah.
this into context. But one of our division is a data division. So what we do is we collect, movie theater locations. We collect movie data. Poster, synopsis, cast, all of that in 25 languages, and then showtimes. So what movie is playing where at what time in 70 plus countries. And we sell that to companies like Google. If you search showtimes near me, what comes up comes from us.
Oh,
So
nice.
that is a super global business. We have team members that need to speak 25 plus languages
Hmm.
to make this work. So there we really have people kind of everywhere in that division. And then we use this data to build business intelligence products for studios to help them distribute their films. Since we know what movie is playing where at what time, we can tell them that in the US today, whatever movie has 30% market share of all showtimes in the whole country, for example, which is not a visibility that they have otherwise. And then we use this data for products for movie theaters, which is the division that I run. So it's building websites and doing online ticketings and things like that for theaters worldwide. So we have clients in about 10 countries now. Sometimes we only have one person that speaks the language of where the client is based. Sometimes we have no staff members in the same country, but we have people covering entire zones. Between AI, which is wonderful for translation,
Yeah.
captions to compensate for sometimes really strong accents, and we make it work. We
Yeah.
have very much a no judgment policy in the company. You can speak as long as you speak English, even if we ask you to repeat 3 times, it's okay. As long as
That's
you
awesome.
go out and try to say what you need to say and not feel shy and self-conscious about how you say it. Doesn't matter as long as people understand you. Let's go. And no judgment on that. So it's
Many of my cohorts or business contacts worry about losing the company culture in a completely remote setup or even in a hybrid setup where they just come into the office a couple times a week. Yours is completely remote. And uh, what
yes
steps
and
have you
no.
guys? Yes and no. Okay. So what steps have you guys taken to protect the culture? And what would you say is your company's legacy for its people?
So pre-COVID, we had offices. We have one in Paris which is our headquarter, which is where I'm based with the W and the slash in the back, where BDO is our parent company. So that's where I
Mm-hmm.
am. So we have an office here. We have an office in Scotland. We have one on the east coast of the US, a small one in Los Angeles. But then with COVID, everybody kind of moved away from the city centers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And people were going to the office. So obviously we went fully remote. And after everything went back to more or less normal, was the question of, do we force the return to office mandate like everybody talked about
Right.
for so long? And we decided not to, because it felt like on one side we would lose some people who were very attached to their new work-life balance for a result that was not obvious in terms of productivity. We didn't feel like we lost in productivity by being remote. I don't need an engineer to sit at a desk at the office instead of sitting at his desk at home when he's mostly talking to people on Discord. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
not talking to the guy sitting next to him anyways.
Right.
Uh, and
Right.
obviously there are many exceptions to this rule. So I'm making
Understood.
very
Yeah.
broad
Yeah.
generalization here.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And then, the ones who do want to go into an office, they still have one. And we
That's
still
good.
have, like, in Glasgow, we have a handful of people, 5 people that like to go in every day almost. And then all the others make an effort to come in a day every 2 weeks or whatever, just to get together and eat some pizza over lunch. Um, and then
No, that's good.
we do remote kind of games, which is always a bit tricky because of time zone differences. So I'm usually based in LA. So the call would have to be at 7:30 in the morning to be 4:30, 5 o'clock in France in the afternoon. So some people have a beer, some people have a coffee, some people have whatever. And we organize some trivia, usually around movies, because that
That's
unites
what you
us
do.
all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's quite fun, and there's some prizes and things like that. So we do try to organize some times that are a bit chill, but it's kind of funny because for me it's really early, for others it's the end of their day. It depends, but as a result, like I'm eating my breakfast on some of them, and others having a cocktail, and that's quite okay.
That's very cool. And everybody loves a good trivia game, right?
Eat.
I mean, who
Exactly.
doesn't?
And some
At
some very good at it.
go ahead. Some are very
Some
good
it's
at it, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah. Like,
It should
how
be
did you
forbidden
remember
to
that?
eggs. Great question. I think the
Yeah.
cheats. No other way.
Full of useless knowledge, some people, right? But it comes in handy in trivia.
Exactly. That's the one time when it's useful. So
My kids, my daughter said, "How did you know that?" I'm like, "I really don't know." It just stuck.
Yeah.
At Uncommonwealth, we often talk about the difference between creating wealth and protecting wealth, right?
Hmm.
So for you personally, how do you think about protecting what you've built, both in your business role as well as in your personal life?
What do you mean by protecting what I've built in
Well,
terms of?
building, you have phases of your life where you're building your wealth, you're building your nest egg, you're building your basically your retirement, right? And then you have a phase in your life where you have very valuable assets, you have very valuable um, net worth, and it's not about building it anymore. It's more about protecting it, preservation of capital, preservation of wealth. So, for you personally, how do you think about that?
I think like everybody, to reach a certain comfort level in your life, it's important to do that and to go through that process and make sure you have the right things in place in your personal life to achieve a little bit of certainty that your later years will be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm still very much in the building phase. I suspect I will be for a long time. And this is my European self talking, but I always feel like living in the US is slightly stressful in that regard, where there's much less of a security net than there is in other European countries, and where it doesn't necessarily take a hell of a lot to end up in a situation that's tricky.
So do you feel like that's an interesting point that you bring up from a European mindset versus an American mindset. Is that because of the systems and programs that, the European governments put in place for their elderly citizens, or do you feel like it's something else?
I'd say it's a mix. It's in Europe, first of all, your health insurance is not tied to your job. It's tied to the government. So whether you have a job or you don't have a job, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have the same health insurance. So the US, you lose your job, you break your leg, it's going to cost you if you
Mhm.
haven't had the time to find another job and be able to get I mean, obviously there's ways to get a temporary one, blah blah blah, but it's quite expensive, and a lot of people can't necessarily afford that if they're not sponsored by their employer. So you can end up more easily in a situation where you're out of pocket a pretty chunk of change versus in Europe. Same thing with unemployment. Unemployment in the US doesn't pay so much. It's a good incentive to get another job quickly, but in Europe, it gives you enough time to find another job without stressing and going through all your savings, because the government will pay for like 80% of your salary for a year or more if need be. So there's that part where it's not as risky, and you won't go through your savings because of a life event. And then indeed in old age, you have much more of a social security and
Like a
things like.
true social security, not a social security in name, right? Like the United States, it's called social security, but it
Yes,
doesn't provide much security at all.
one that allows you to live on, even if it's not necessarily very richly or very comfortably, but enough that you can live on without worrying. And so your savings is can be used for the extras and the fun of your old age, and not for basic living expenses, which are covered by the government.
So do you think that mindset, because of that understanding of those three things that you just mentioned right there, it promotes a lifestyle in Europe that is more, and I know people plan for the future, but does it promote, let's more live in the moment, let's enjoy today, let's take our holidays, let's do things like that. Whereas opposed to the United States, it's we're not going to be taken care of. We don't have coverage if I lose my job. So I like have to focus and kind of worry about the future, the future, the future. Do you think that those two components play well together?
I it's for me, it's super interesting questions, and I don't understand them 100%, because while I think this is true to some extent, and Europeans take a lot more vacation, and then they don't worry so much about their healthcare because it's taken care of, if you will. But at the same time, they're a lot more averse to change. than the US. If you look at percentages of how often people change jobs in the US, it happens a lot more than in Europe. People tend to stay at the same jobs in Europe for a much longer period of time, even though if they wanted to change job, they would be somewhat covered and helped through that process. So it's a bit of a maybe because also in the US there's less security. If you are out of a job, you just jump and you go to the next, and then you'll always move on to the next rather quickly. Maybe employers also give you more of a chance and hire you easier and also fire you easier. But maybe as a result, I don't know.
It's a very it's I get fascinated by this topic, and it often comes up because, I mean, that's the business that I'm in. My business is wealth preservation, legacy planning for business owners and high net worth individuals, high income earners. But from a philosophical and financial standpoint, I think there was a statistic. I don't know where I got this from. I don't know how long I've known it, but it says the average American will change jobs between 7 and 9 times, right? Change companies. But a lot of that was born when the 401k in the United States became the retirement plan as opposed to a corporate pension. Prior to the 401k invention in, the 80s, it was all about work 30 years at your job, get a company pension plan and retire, which is kind of the mindset, in Europe, where it's not necessarily the company that provides you a pension. Well, some probably do, but it's more the governments will provide you the pension that provides you that lifestyle. So there's no urgency to change. And you are right. Um, it's the companies can churn through employees so fast these days on a corporate level. It doesn't cost them hardly any money except
No.
for recruiting, hiring, and developing.
Yeah,
But,
training.
if it's rank and file, that's done all the time. It becomes more expensive, in the executive C-suite space, which is why executive retention is such an important deal. But it's such a fascinating concept of, shifting benefits changes behavior, and that behavior affects lifestyle. And I know we're getting down a rabbit hole that is not where you spend your time, but it's
It's super
interesting.
interesting. We could spend a whole hour just on this topic. It's
Well, so
really
let me
good.
try to bring it back to something more for you as a leader in your company. What does legacy mean to you? So if your team or your family, but if your teams were listening to this conversation 25 years from now, what would you want them to remember about how you led and how you built legacy with purpose, both in your teams, at the company, as well as individually?
I hope they would remember that they had a sense of fun and flexibility in their work while having a vision of what we're trying to do that's clear and pulls people together. I try to remind my team members every once in a while that we are not doctors and we don't save lives. We sell movie tickets. So let's not forget that. And when things get too stressful and you can never business, you have unhappy clients every once in a while, you get yelled at every once in a while. That's okay. It's like nobody's dying here. Yes, there are bugs in the software or whatever. It's all right. Like we didn't put a brain implant wrong. Like
Mm-hmm. That's
like
yeah. It's not
breathe.
brain surgery, right?
Exactly. So take your work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. Have a sense of humor, and carry on. And hopefully that transpires in the way as a management team, because it's not just me. It's never carried by just one individual, especially when everybody's remote. I hope that we put in place the right individuals that carry the values that we picked for ourselves as a company, and that this shines through. It's honesty and respect, and a little bit of sense of humor, and helping each other, as well as helping our clients. But yeah, we work together. It's not a race to the finish. We try to support each other.
I love that. I mean, that should apply across a multitude of different fields, right? I love that a lot. We do tend to take ourselves way too serious and kind of lose context of the overall big picture, right? What's a blind spot you think most executives miss when it comes to protecting not just the productivity of their team, but also the well-being and the long-term wealth of their people on their team?
Um, it's a good question. I'd say maybe, especially in a remote environment, it's really easy when you have back-to-back calls, which I think a lot of managers have today, and they're speaking to different teams, different people. You just jump right in, and you cover the 3 bullet points you had marked on your notepad that you needed to discuss today, and you ask your team member if they have something for you to discuss also, and you say, "Okay, great, speak to you at the next call," and you hang up, and you don't take the time to ask, "How are they doing?" The things that you would talk about at the coffee machine or on the Monday
Mhm.
in the office. In a remote world, I feel like we've lost, or we can lose, let's say. You can lose easily that, "Hey, how's it going? Like, let's chat. Let's go grab a coffee. Let's, you know, talk to me about your life, your kids, your weekend, your next vacation." It's hard to find the time and to make the time to have that kind of conversation. And I think that's what makes a boss not just a boss, but an individual, and can create the relationship that you need for people to stay. People stay in a job not because they necessarily think the job is awesome. They stay because they like their manager, they like their teammates and the atmosphere. So taking the time to be a little bit personal is important. And I think that can be a blind spot, especially in a remote world.
100%. And in a time constrained environment, right? Where, like you mentioned, calls stack up behind each other. I can see exactly what you just said. Let's get right down to it because I got to hurry up. I got another call in 30 minutes, and you kind of dehumanize the work environment, right? And that is one of the good things about being in a physical office, like you just said, is we can have a cup of coffee together. We can walk to the cafe together. We can, you know, go to the restroom and chit chat in the restroom, right? I mean, those things don't happen in a virtual environment. So how are you purposeful about making sure that you block out time for that?
Um, I'd say first of all, there are individuals in each team that need it more than others.
Mhm.
So it's identifying the people that especially need that personal connection, and making sure that with these individuals you add on an extra 10 minutes to your meeting
Mhm.
on purpose, just to have the time to say, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah.
A and then the others that you know are fine and don't care and they're fine, just down to business, is still taking that time, maybe not as often, but at least, every few calls is. And we talked about EOS earlier. In the EOS L10 structure, which is the weekly meeting with your team,
Yeah. Yeah.
first 5 minutes is your personal best and your business best.
Mhm.
And and it's kind of reminding yourself of that technique or that, strategy even on one-on-one conversations, spending the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes. If you forgot at the beginning, that's okay, just keep the 5 minutes at the end and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, yeah, we just jumped right in, but you didn't tell me about how your weekend went.
Yeah. How
Tell me."
are the kids? Yeah.
Play. Like, let's take a few
Exactly.
minutes at the end. So I think that was a helpful reminder to do that either at the start or at the end of each meeting, is just be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Maureen, thank you for sharing your perspective on leadership, productivity, and building strong teams in this new world of work. I mean, it feels like COVID was just yesterday, but we're pushing 5 years now.
Hard to
And we're
believe.
still adjusting to it, right? Your focus on people, systems, and the long-term impact of how they feel. resonates perfectly with what Uncommonwealth is all about: building, protecting, and passing on wealth with purpose. To our listeners, I mean, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone else. Check into that EOS system that Maureen talked about. It is amazing. It will transform your business. Share it with someone navigating leadership in the remote age. Connect with Maureen on LinkedIn, and join us as we continue to explore uncommon strategies for wealth, legacy, and impact. So, Maureen, thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it.
Merci beaucoup.
Well said.
All right. All right. Thank you, Maureen. Appreciate it.